this is Tyler with TJack Survival and Survival Dispatch. So,
come on. There we go. There we go. In this series, I've been focusing on fire, water, shelter, food, medical, communications, and the ability to replenish it. And I'm hiking along elk hunting right now, and I saw some fatwood. And some of you call it lighter wood, pitchwood, fatwood. It's just highly resinous wood. And right here is about the most perfect example of where you can find fatwood. Essentially what happens is the tree gets knocked over with wind, lightning, whatever, and continues to grow. So I have a couple of great examples. I'll zoom up here in a second. Right here is highly resinous pitchwood and pine. And right here is not great. Along this outside is phenomenal. So let me show you some of this. Okay, there we go. Whenever you're in a pine forest, or a pine tree forest, whatever, there's always highly resinous fatwood available. And the most telltale sign I can think of, whether it's pinyon or ponderosa or lodgepole, whatever kind of pine that you're looking at, is this yellow look to it. Now, one thing that you can tell essentially is that the tree was wounded right here, and then it pushed resin into the wound in order to seal the wound. That resin, which is kind of a fat, sugary mix, in conjunction with the fibers of the tree, is what you're looking for. Now, I'm obviously not going to cut this big chunk of tree out, but it was a perfect example that I can use to show you. The other thing, too, is when you cut it, and cut in here, see how it's almost like cutting through resin. If you've ever taken ever done any fiberglass work or resinous type of work, it's like cutting through resin. The other thing too is you get these little chunks right here of that pitch. You can use this for a lot of stuff. You can mix it with some herbivore poop and charcoal and melt it, and it will make pitch glue for primitive knives. You can rub it on your hands to create grip if you're doing a hand drill. You can rub it on the spindle of the hand drill. You can rub it on the spindle of the bow drill to create grip if you've got a 550 cord that's sliding. And you can use it in fire. You can take the resin and put it in a bag or whatever. No, when it gets warm, it'll make it sticky. So, don't put it in something you don't want to ruin. But you can take this resin and add it to other types of wood that it'll make the fat drip into that wood and make it burn better. So if I wanted to collect some of this pitchwood, I'd cut some of this bark free right here, or better yet, I'd just go over to that other side that's already busted off, and that's where I'd grab it from. So right over here is where that chunk was. Now we're going to look at this line right there. Essentially you have the internal dead heartwood of the tree right here, and then you've got the cambium, or the growing layer, which is right here, and that's where let's call it the blood of the tree flows. Now when this tree got blasted over, probably by wind, the roots continued to grow and fill all of this up with resin. And that is the prime fatwood, lighter wood, pitchwood, whatever you call it in your part of the world. That's what you're looking for right there. One of the better ways to tell what you've got is the smell. I can't convey to you smell over a camera, but so we cut this off. You see how that's slick and resinous? Now you don't want the bark. The bark of these trees is resistant to fire. It will still burn, it just resists fire burning. What you want is this layer right inside of it. So if I was to shave this bark off and then take this chunk right there, that's a good chunk of fatwood or pitchwood. One really valuable thing that you can do with this is if you got a big bundle of it, maybe it's starting to rain, or maybe for whatever reason you need that fire to go really well. You dump this big chunk of pitchwood in that fire, it'll almost be black smoky, and even the rain and the water is not going to put it out within reason. So that is kind of the best way I can explain where to grab this. Now, because we're talking about fire, we're talking about essentially a fire extender, I kind of want to talk real quickly on the different levels of fire, which I'm going to do over here. So all fire starts out essentially as a spark. There's got to be something that ignites it. Just like with the lighter, you have a spark that ignites the chemical reaction between butane and oxygen, which creates fire. So just like when you start up a train, you got that spark or that initiator and it moves slowly. The reason that it's moving slowly is because the flame isn't super hot. A coal is hotter than a flame. One way to test this, run your fingers over a flame, try to pick up a coal. Self-correcting, the coal is hotter than the flame. So what's happening is that coal is drying out the material around it, or that flame is drying out this material. This is pretty darn dry, but it's about 10% water. So when you hit that lighter to this stick and you start to see smoke, a large portion of that smoke is just water vapor leaving the stick. Once all the water vapor is gone, then it can start to gasify. The gasification process, in conjunction with oxygen in the air, mixes together with a chemical reaction. That's how we get fire. The reason this is important is because if I did a bow drill, right, and I've got a coal, I can't just stick the coal on this bush and expect it to start. I have to go from a coal or a spark to tinder to kindling to small fuel. Keep that order straight in your head and it will make fire starting substantially easier, whether or not you're doing ferro rod, matches, lighter, whatever. So a spark or a coal or a flame in this case, tinder, kindling, fuel. Now we got to define those things. Tinder is fluffy material. It can be very fine feather sticks. It can be lint, as long as it's a lint from cotton or some sort of plant-based material, not plastic. Tinder is going to be something like this. If I take a bundle of this together, or maybe some tamarack, or some sort of bush that I can get, all of these little sticks that I'm going to say are matchstick size, that's tinder. Kindling is when we start moving into these bigger sticks. Okay, so you want the tinder, which is I'm moving faster than my brain. You want the tinder, which is the fluffy stuff, to the kindling, which is this, to the fuel, which is the larger sticks. So tinder is things like the cambium layer of cottonwood, juniper, sagebrush, very fine feather sticks. Kindling is the next level up like this. You gotta have the tinder to get the kindling going. You don't have to, but it's way easier if you do. And then fuel. If you're gonna burn a fire that has sticks of fuel that are the diameter of your forearm and no longer. The reason that we want to do this is because if you're doing a quick fire or a cooking fire, you don't want to leave a mess. So if you spread out a spot on the ground, don't worry about putting rocks down. It's kind of an old thing that we've just passed down, these fire circles, these rock circles. It doesn't really serve a purpose. It doesn't really do anything. Sparks will still fall outside of them. So if you just spread open a clear enough area and you put your fire out on the ground, when it's done, it should burn down to complete dust and be nothing but dust. And you should be able to put your fingers in it to make sure that there's no coals. Now, if you don't want to leave coals, again, use fuel the diameter of your arm and the length of your arm. And as the tip starts to burn, because flames will burn up just roll that piece over on top of itself. If you want the flame to go along the log, you have to tilt it so that it will walk up the log. If you leave it level, it's just going to burn straight to the ground and chop it off. If you bring it up, it just burns up. But if you want the log to continue, you actually have to tilt it so the flame can walk up it. So keep that in mind. When you want to do quick cooking fires, this is how we get a hold of pitchwood. We've talked about tinder, kindling, fuel, and how to create a fire without leaving a mess. Because once you're done with this, you can just brush off the dust of that burnt ash, put a little dust on it, make sure there are no coals so that you're not leaving a fire, and then you're good to go. Put some water on it, make sure your fingers have touched it. All right, hope this helps you find pitchwood. I hope this helps your fires become more effective. Leave comments down below. Thank you for watching. So I'm hiking, and I'm always looking for wild edibles. Now up here, I'm in the Uinta Mountains of Utah. There's not a lot of wild edibles up here. It's actually really hard survival type locations because it's fairly wet and it's just pine trees. But right along the edge of these rocks right here, right along these rocks, you will see raspberries. And basically some animal ate some raspberries a long time ago, pooped right here, and now there's a bush of raspberries. A bush of raspberries right there. And the good thing is there's no poisonous lookalikes. It's really hard to screw it up. Grab a couple of these guys off of here. Really easy to identify. Red berries looks a lot like blackberry, only it's raspberries, and they have these little clusters of seeds. Basically, the way they spread, somebody or something eats them, poops their poop out somewhere, and it makes another raspberry bush the next year. It's kind of gross, but that's how nature works. So, the cool thing is when you're up here not finding elk like me, you run into a little bush, you can stop and grab a snack. Eat yourself some raspberries. Be careful though, this is also like the perfect spot to find black bear, because they like raspberries too. Probably how these raspberries got here to begin with some black bear poop. Kind of interesting too, because you look straight down, you won't always notice that if you roll it up, you'll see the seeds right there. So sometimes you gotta look at the bush low so that you catch these guys that are underneath there. Kind of like down at this angle. That way you're gonna see. Here's a perfect example. I didn't see that one until I squatted down low. Now, got a perfectly ripe raspberry. So I can do this with my one hand to make it focus.